Hey everybody, Frat Guy to Yu-Gi-Oh here, and I'm presenting a Thunder Dragon deck profile of my own creation. Now, this is probably the cheapest good Thunder deck profile you'll find on the internet, which is pretty sweet. But not to say it's not expensive, Colossus is an expensive card. And going into the future, if you don't want to drop a bunch of money on the dangers, this is probably a good viable option to keep going. So, the theme of this deck is summoning a big monster, several big monsters, and banishing, sending to the graveyard, and using the powers of light and dark monsters. And also the thunder types that are prevalent throughout Thunder Dragons. So, we'll start with the main deck monsters. We play 3 regular Thunder Dragons, and this card, if you do not know, you discard 1 to add the other 2 to your hand. So Thunder Dragon is a great starter. It fills up your graveyard if you want to summon Blackluster Soldier, Thunder Dragon Duo, or you just need a target for Hawk, which is a nice extender card. Next, we play 3 Thunder Dragon Dark. This serves two very important purposes in the deck. 1, it's a quick effect discard to add another Thunder Dragon Dark to your hand. But also, if you manage to banish it or send it from the field to the grave, you get to search any Thunder Dragon card from your deck. And that's card, not monster. So you can search Fusion or the traps if you run them, but I do not run them. The next one is another great starter card, which is what you're usually summoning Dark with from the deck. Thunder Dragon Roar, 3 copies of it. Thunder Dragon Roar allows you, when banished, to summon 1 from the deck, and when it's discarded, you can add a card from your graveyard or banished pile back to your hand, which is great for recycling your Colossi or just getting combo pieces back from the grave or banish. The next one is Thunder Dragon Hawk. This is your monster reborn for the deck. You discard it to special summon a card from the graveyard or the banish zone. And also, if you manage to banish it and just have a really bad hand, you can mulligan as many amount of cards as you want. It's a magical mallet. So if you have 5 cards in hand, you banish Thunder Dragon Hawk, you shuffle the other 4 back and draw 4 new cards, which is a great way to just get the nice one-ofs, power spells you keep in the deck. The next one is Thunder Dragon Matrix. This is usually what you trigger Titan with. And Thunder Dragon Matrix is a quick effect to discard, and it boosts one of your Thunder-type monsters on the field by 500. This works with Titan, and it also helps boost Colossus when they negate your effects, because that's what they try to do, and then beat over it with a 3k monster, but the 500 boost makes it 31, so your monster doesn't actually die, which is really great. The last main deck Thunder Dragon is Thunder Dragon Duo. This card is chaos summonable by having a light and a dark in your graveyard. It's a one-of because it's searchable with Dragon Dark and Thunder Dragon Fusion, and it's a really neat way to get off some effects. It's a good top deck if you've already filled up your graveyard with things and they've broken your board. But it's also a level 8, which is very important when you summon it and you have a Colossus on the field, because you can make rank 8 synchros. The next are a bunch of starter deck main monsters, including 3 Batteryman Solar. Batteryman Solar is a foolish burial for the deck. You can normal summon it, and it sends a thunder monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is really cool, which, again, fills up your graveyard for Hawk, or if you have access to a graveyard banisher like Colossus or Titan, you can banish things to get effects off. Or a great combo where you start is when you have Batteryman Solar and Hawk in your hand, you send something with Solar, like say you send Thunder Dragon Roar to the graveyard, then you summon that Dragon Roar with Hawk, and then you get all the effects off. So that's a great card. Now, since Gold Sarcophagus was limited to 1, you now run 3 Aloof Lupin, and Aloof Lupin, you normal summon it, and then you banish 1 card from your hand, and then a card from your deck with the same attribute. You do this to get your Thunder Dragon card's effects off, and it's really helpful. A nice substitute for Gold Sarcophagus now that it's limited to 1. That does not mean you don't still run Gold Sarc, as you'll see in a minute. My crazy tech choice for this deck is Darkest Diabolos. Now, the great thing about this card is, 1, it's actually pretty easy to summon if your deck is doing correctly. It can be a brick, which is a detriment to the deck, but if you use any of the dark monsters and tribute them to summon Colossus, yes, it's a tribute, so you can special summon this card. And one of the greatest things about Diabolos is it's non-targetable, and everything they do, like when they go to the side tech games 2 and 3, everything they do to get rid of Colossus targets. And it's happened to me a few times. I'll play Sky Strikers, they evenly match me, and then I'll keep the Diabolos instead of the Colossus because they have a hard time running over big monsters, but they usually just negate your Colossus and try to destroy it. But everything Sky Striker does targets, and this cannot be targeted or tributed for a Kaiju, which they also might have sided in. The last big main deck monster, also level 8, just like Diabolos, to make Hope Harbinger and other rank 8s, is BLS. Beautiful card in any Chaos deck. Such a wonderful addition. And you can summon that by banishing a light and a dark, just like with Duo. And you can banish a card in the field, or attack twice and push for game, which is a great thing if you end up going second. We're only running 2 hand traps, 2 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Now, the reason for this is it stops BA, which I always see a lot of. And even though they can't add because of Colossus, because they're usually under Colossus, if they negate it and then try to do their combos, you can still have the Ash. Or if they try to special summon from the deck or Foolish from the deck, then you can stop them there. Now onto the spells. We run 2 Thunder Dragon Fusion. It can be a great card in your opening hand, or a great card to search out with Thunder Dragon Dark if you don't already have Hawk. This is the polymerization for the deck. You just play it, and you can use fusion monsters from your field, graveyard, or banish zone. You cannot use cards in your hand like a normal polymerization, but most of your cards are in your field or banish zone anyway. And it shovels back your Colossi if you use them for Titan, which is a very important skill to have. Since it is a fusion-focused deck, we also run Instant Fusion. This card, you pay 1,000 life points and summon a level 5 or lower card from your extra deck. Fusion monster from your extra deck, which is really good because, 1, it summons Kaminari Attack, which is a Thunder level 5 monster from Metal Raiders in 2002, which is a really neat way to get into Titan or make some Summer Summoner in your Link Zone. So that's a really great card. Now, because we run so many dark monsters and they get effects when banished, we run 3 Allure of Darkness. This card, you play it, you draw 2 cards, and then, so it's not a cost, it's an and then effect, you banish a dark monster from your hand. A great thing to use with this is Roar or Thunder Dragon Dark itself, but you can use it with Duo, you can use it with Diabolos, which is why they synergize well with this version of the deck. I don't recommend blind alluring, but sometimes you do have to, and that's one of the dangers of running this card. To stop hand traps, we have 2 Call by the Grave, which obviously stop hand traps because it banishes something from the grave and negates its effects. And it also can stop people who, once you get them to turn 3, because it usually devolves into a grind game after that big turn 2 break, and then you break them turn 3. And Call by the Grave is really helpful in that, but it's a terrible top deck. And lastly, we have 3 1-ofs. We have 1-for-1 to summon your Dragon Matrix, Gold Sark because it was limited to 1 and it's one of the best cards in the deck, and Upstart Goblin to make sure the deck is 39 cards. The reason you run Upstart Goblin, even if it is just at 1 and it's a slight statistical advantage, is this card just adds another card. And it's very easy, especially with the ratios that are already prevalent in this deck. So that's all for the spells. Now let's go to the extra deck. You run 3 Thunder Dragon Colossus. And Thunder Dragon Colossus is a mistake on legs. It does not allow your opponent to add cards except by drawing them. It cannot be destroyed while you have a Thunder in your graveyard unless they negate the effects, which they try to do, which is why you run the Diabolos and try to protect your Colossus as much as you can. Next, we have 2 Thunder Dragon Tits. 2 tits, just like God intended. It's great. And this is a MST, it's a Pankratops for the deck, at least for the extra deck. You activate it with those quick effects on your opponent's turn using the Thunder Dragon Darks or Dragon Matrices in your hand, and you get a pop when you activate a Thunder Dragon monster effect in the hand. It can also help you get through things, because you usually are discarding for effects during your own turn, and you can pop things on the field like field spells or problem monsters that are hard to get rid of. Then you have your instant fusion targets, Kaminari Attack and Thousand Eyes Restrict. Kaminari Attack because it's a Thunder that you can just summon for 1,000 life points, so basically free. And then Thousand Eyes Restrict because it's an interesting out to some things, And if you do just end up top decking Instant Fusion, you can also make Link Kariba with this, which we'll go into in a second. Only Xyz we run Hope Harbinger because Colossus is a level 8, Diabolos is a level 8, BLS is a level 8, and then Duo is a level 8, which is searchable. And you overlay all those and you get this Hope Harbinger, which is a really great out to, say, Sky Striker. If you can get one of the main deck monsters that are level 8 on top of a Colossus to make this, it's really great, and you still have the 2, which are harder to out than just having 1, which is really impressive. And you can negate 1 spell per turn. Usually you want to hit multi-roll so you can do other things to their spells or at least chain to them later. Now for the Link monsters, which there are a lot of. 1, Borlo Dragon. This card, non-targetable by monster effects. It's a real great turn 3 play after they try and break your board. If they can't break your board, there's no need to summon this, but when it's there, you have it, especially to out other Borloads and other untargetable monsters. Then you have Summon Sorceress because you're running mostly Thunders and Reaper Docus in the extra deck, so you can summon this, summon a Thunder monster from your hand, and then special summon a Thunder monster from your deck to the field, which is a really great way to have this. And you always want to make this if you're starting. It's not always essential, but it's good to have if you do kind of brick and you end up with Aloof Lupine and Reaper Docus. You can just make it and summon Thunder monsters, which is really effective. Then you have Nightmare Unicorn just for the spins. The spins, you don't really do a lot of co-linking, so the draws aren't that important, but it's always good to have a card that spins, especially an expensive card. Then, the OG boy of the deck, this beautiful Summer Summoner, chilling out on his cloud in his Speedo. This is a really good card for the deck because if you activate a Thunder Dragon effect in the hand, you can tribute this to summon Colossus. So you put the 2 Colossus below it, and then you turn it into a Colossus as well. Then for the more bricky sorts of things, especially now that Aloof Lupine's a thing, you have Land, which is just a 2-monster, 2-arrow thing. It's really great. And if you've summoned your monsters correctly, which is why you always want to summon them into the zone below Link arrows, you have Reaper Docus to make Summon Sorceress, which is great if you end up with Aloof Lupine and a Thunder monster to the side of it. That's why it's important where you place your monsters with this deck. So you can make Reaper Docus, turn your Aloof Lupine into a dinosaur, and then make Summon Sorceress with it. And lastly, we have Link Karibo, which you can make with Matrix to get its effect to add to hand, or you can make with Thousand Eyes Restrict just to remove a monster, because you can't attack with an Instant Fusion Thousand Eyes Restrict. And it's an interesting form of removal, and it also kind of stops a lot of things, which is a great addition to the deck. Now that we have that, we'll go into the side deck, and it's a lot of Altergeist sides, which I might need to change now that Altergeist aren't as prevalent, or maybe they'll become more prevalent now that people aren't siding for them as much. But anyway, at locals, you'll face a lot of rogue decks, just because people have to be cheaper and like playing more, so it's good to have just general outs to a lot of things. The best out in the game, Kaijus. I play 2 Gamma Seal, the Sea Turtle Kaiju. The way Kaijus function is you can summon them to your opponent's side of the field by tributing one of their monsters. So if a card can't be targeted or destroyed, you just drop a Kaiju on it. And because Gamma Seal has the lowest attack, it's the best one, because Colossus can run it over. Even Thunder Dragon Roar with 2400 can run it over. Next card, 3 Dino Wrestler Pankratops for Altergeist, Sky Strikers. A really great card if you're going second. It's a better Cyber Dragon, really, which is a really great thing to see. And Dino Wrestler Pankratops is a great thing to draw, and you can just pop a card. 2 copies of Twin Twister, because you never want Altergeist to be able to activate their traps. Do this in the beginning of the main phase with priority, or when they activate them during the standby phase, you just pop these suckers out and just blow up their field so they don't get as much advantage. They will still get their multi-faker off, but you have the Solemn Brigade in your side for that. 2 strikes and a judgment. You can do strike, warning, judgment, strike, strike, strike. You can do whatever you want there. But I like strike, strike, judgment because this can stop just any play. Like if their deck's normal summon reliant, pop this on them, they can't do anything. If their deck's extra summon reliant or based out of the graveyard, this is a great way to stop them. And then for those Link decks, Rivalry of the Warlords. Now, you might say, but Wyatt, you run a lot of non-Thunder type monsters in this deck. That's true, but your inboard should always just be Thunder type monsters. And if you still have Summon Sorceress or Land there, you can just send that to the graveyard and you don't really lose anything. In fact, you just open up an extra monster zone. You'll usually end on all Thunders, and you'll be alright if you just activate Rivalry of Warlords. And then lastly, for those trap-heavy decks, we do play 2 red Reboot. These are kind of hard to see, but they're good to have, especially if you don't want to be impermanenced, because people will impermanence your Colossus, and if you drop this on them, yes, you're paying half your life points, but they just wasted an impermanence, which is perfectly fine. Yeah, so that's the side deck, main deck, and extra deck, and I hope you guys enjoy the game.